When assembling the injector plugs or the adapters to the head, don't forget to add a bit of Loctite on the threads. When installing the injectors into the adapters, oil them up a little bit so they slide in nicely without damaging the O-rings. For the injector heads, don't forget the O-rings on top of the heads, and again, oil the O-rings a little bit of the injectors before fitting these. For the 924 NA and 924 supercharged, if you look closely at the injector straps, you will see that there's two of them with one hole and two of them with two small holes. This is an identification coding or marking in order for you to easily identify which goes where. So those with one hole go on cylinder 1 and 2, and those with two holes go to cylinder 3 and 4. The reason is that the NA casting is a little bit different here. So the first two cylinders have one height, and the cylinder 3 and 4 have a different height. And that's why these are different. So pay attention to these. This is critical that you use the right strap for the right position in order to keep the head properly secured and aligned. So the strap goes directly on top of the manifold, and then comes a washer and then the nut, not any other way. What you need to have is the straps touch the O-rings and slightly compress them a little bit, and you want to make sure that they are absolutely parallel like this. Right? So in order to achieve this, of course, you have to pay attention to the coding, and when assembling the strap and tightening these nuts, press down with one hand here to ensure that the strap is all the way down, and then with the other hand tighten the nut. But don't tighten it all the way, tighten it a little bit, and then check that you are as centered as possible. Okay, it's not going to be absolutely perfect, but you don't want to see strange differences from side to side. Okay, so you have to have the strap fairly centered to the head. And that's it for the injectors. When doing the crank pulley, the trigger sensor, it's a good idea to also do the timing belt, because in order to change the timing belt at a later time, you'll have to take the pulley out. You see, this is quite close here, and to change the timing belt, you need to take this pulley out. So do the timing belt while you're doing the upgrade, and of course find the position, the correct position. Align this notch right with that one. Make sure that these are aligned so the engine is in time. Tighten the pulley in the right position. Mount the bracket and the sensor, but leave these two bolts loose, or slightly loose. Then take a feeler gauge, 0.8 to 1 point something millimeters. This is just a 1 millimeter feeler gauge. Put it in there, and then tighten the nut, these two nuts, with a feeler gauge in place. And that's it. Your trigger system is now installed. The intake manifold air temperature sensor replaces the fifth injector in this port. Simply undo the fifth injector, mount the sensor into the bracket. Don't forget about this O-ring in between, and then mount it to the manifold. For the ignition coil, in the kit there's this cylinder which replaces the stem of the ignition distributor, and then there's this triangle plate with 4 holes. The one in the middle you have to Loctite with a M8 bolt to the cylinder first, then use these long bolts to strap the coil to the plate. These have nylon locking nuts, so you don't have to lock them in place. And then the whole sub-assembly fits in place of the ignition distributor. One important thing not to forget is the seal here. There's a metal or some sort of seal here. You need to keep that to avoid oil seeping out. Right? So keep that from the distributor. And the orientation you want is this one, right? With the connector coming towards the front. For the coolant sensor, you have to install it in the place of the thermal switch. You see I'm doing this on the engine, with the engine out of the car. Normally you should take this off. I already mounted it and I forgot to clean the threads, so I'm cleaning them like that. Ideally you would have to take this out and then clean the threads. You absolutely need to clean the threads, because especially if you do this with the engine in the car, this is the most difficult part to get to. You have to undo these 2 bolts, remove this housing, replace the thermal switch with the sensor, and put it back. So you don't want any leaks here. Very important to clean the threads. And don't forget the washer. So when you when you tighten this, remember to orient the connector in such a way that it is, let's say, facing with longer flat side towards the head. The reason is you will need a space to connect the electrical connector to it. So after you've tightened it, you can actually use something like this to readjust the connector orientation.